guys, welcome back again to Dave's Mention. Welcome back again for another video. Welcome back again to the channel that is your home for tech, toys, and talk. And of course, the channel where chaos and insanity will always reign supreme. So we're back again, not for an unbox, but for a bit of a, well, review. You guys obviously know I'm a Ghostbuster fan, so of course I went and saw Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, not once, but twice this weekend. Me and Mrs. Dimension went on Thursday night, and then we were doing a little event with the Buffalo Ghostbusters yesterday, Saturday. So we went and we stayed at the theater and saw it again. Now, I'll be perfectly honest out there. I'm already seeing the fandom is coming off a bit divided. Some people feel like the movie could have been tremendously better. Some people were damning the movie. A lot of people are loving the movie. People are very divided. Now, I'm going to give you my honest opinion and take on it. And honestly, interpret it however you want. Okay? First off, I love the movie. Now, of course, I'm going to, full disclosure, I'm probably very biased. As someone who grew up in the 80s, I watched the original movies. Okay? I remember watching Ghostbusters, the movie, over and over and over again until we had to buy a new copy of it on VHS. Okay? I watched it for hours on end. I remember watching every Saturday morning the real Ghostbusters cartoon on ABC. Okay? So, for me, I'm a longtime fan. Okay? And I'm not knocking any longtime fans who didn't get what I got out of it. However, I clearly remember the dark times. And the dark times meaning those, 26, 27 years where we had no Ghostbuster movies. You know, 1989, we had Ghostbusters 2. And then we did not get another motion picture offering until 2016. Now, obviously, that's Ghostbusters Answer the Call, which is not part of this timeline or universe. It's an alternate timeline. It was geared as a potential reboot. And evidently it just didn't perform right at the box office. That's one thing. A lot of it was, perspectives, but we're not here to discuss Answer the Call. Answer the Call has a lot of pluses and minuses, but every movie does. No movie is 100%, home run, grand slam. Nothing is 100% perfect, guys. Let's get that straight first and foremost, okay? Whether it's Star Wars, Star Trek, we're talking action movies, rom-coms. Nothing is 100% perfect. Some movies come pretty damn close, but nothing is ever 100% perfect, okay? And I think a lot of the fandom felt a certain way. They felt, hey, we're going back to New York City. I'm expecting A, B, C, and D, but they didn't get that. They might have got, E, F, G, and H instead. So I think a lot of people, when they were going to the theaters, they had a certain image of what's going to happen, and it didn't happen, okay? Now, I'm going to go over everything with you guys. And by the way, there will be a spoiler warning here, okay? I am going to discuss things that have happened in the movie. So, if you have not watched Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, pause this, save in your watch later list, and come back to it. Because I will be discussing events that happened during the movie Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Okay? So, again, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it, turn this off and come back later, guys. Now that that's been told and said and given you guys plenty of warning, let's go ahead and get right into this. Now, obviously, this picks up 2 years after the events of Afterlife. And if you haven't watched Afterlife, why not? Get off your butts, go ahead and rent it, buy it, do a digital rental on, Vudu or Amazon Prime or whatever services you might be subscribing to. Go ahead and watch it. Long story short, Egon Spengler's descendants, that is his daughter and her kids, they found themselves homeless, so they found out that her father had died, so they go to his old house in Oklahoma. And they find, basically, his grandkids find the legacy of who their grandfather was, that he was a Ghostbuster. Not just a Ghostbuster, but a Ghostbuster with a plan to stop the big bads Long story short, by the end of the movie, we get a love interest played by Paul Rudd for the mother, who's perfect for being a surrogate father, maybe, stepfather in the future. We'll see. And, ultimately they get to team up with the remaining Ghostbusters, Ray, Pete, and of course, Winston. They save the day, and Winston now has money, and he brings them back to New York City, brings the Ecto-1 back to New York. But we also see that right at the end credits, the containment unit's acting a little wonky. Flashback, flash forward to the present. Now, Callie, Gary, and Trevor, and Phoebe are now the family that busts together. Now, Gary's obviously living with them in the firehouse, and they've taken over the business. Winston gave him the keys and gave him the funds to restore the firehouse and to keep it running. It's not in perfect condition. The containment unit's still the same existing containment unit from 1989 after they rebuilt the firehouse. So suffices to say, things are not going 100% perfect. Right in the beginning, they're chasing the sewer dragon ghost from the sewers. Phoebe's in a gunner's chair, even though her mother told her not to. Phoebe's being a little bit rebellious in this movie. Kind of digging it. And what happens is, of course, they cause a lot of public damage, and they have to come before the mayor. The mayor of New York City is now Mayor Walter Peck. Yeah, that's right. Dickless is back, and he's running the city. We're screwed, right? Basically, he's kind of the slight secondary antagonist for the story. Basically tells them that if they want to continue, Phoebe can't be out there. He says, we don't let minors be police officers. We don't let minors be firefighters. We're not going to let a minor be a Ghostbuster. You can be a junior Ghostbuster and hand out stickers if you want. So obviously we know Peck's history with the Ghostbusters. We know he hates their guts. He's hoping for them to do something that will bring everything crashing down. Now, I'm not going to spoil everything here for you guys, okay? Phoebe is 15 years old, and like all teenagers, you kind of go through an awkward phase where it seems like you can't do a single damn thing right. And she can't rationalize why she can't be a Ghostbuster. Well, her mother was like, listen, be a teenager. Enjoy, for a couple of years, just be a teenager, have fun, make mistakes. And of course, we can definitely see that Gary as the boyfriend to Callie. But he also wants to be the friend to the kids, Trevor's 18 now, so he can get away with working, as a Ghostbuster. A lot of chaos is happening. We see the containment unit starting to act up. They reach out to Winston and his engineers. And, well, eventually they find out that Winston has a secondary base set up at an old aquarium where they have a mega containment unit set up. They are experimenting with ghosts of all kind. I mean, this is the stuff that, is very real Ghostbusters. Because in the real Ghostbusters, there's a couple episodes where Egon had this chamber built where hypothetically he could bring a ghost out of the containment unit for testing, or possibly take a person and project them into the containment unit. So it's very cool that they kind of have this setup going on. I will say this. The big arguments or the big complaint a lot of fans have is it's great that we're getting introduced to a lot of characters. Because there's Winston's engineers that we meet. One in particular who I can definitely see him as being a very, very young Egon, but with a little bit more attitude. We see a lot of people there. They're obviously working on new equipment. They have a device that can actually separate a spirit from a possessed object. Very cool. But also, we get introduced to this one person who's just trying to sell his possessed junk to Ray, but turns out that he's going to play a much more vital part in the movie and maybe in Ghostbusters moving forward. I definitely see a lot of potential with him. We get Patton Oswalt, who is someone that Ray knows at the public library. And I could see him being a potential asset or, pseudo next generation Ray for the Ghostbusters. We get introduced to a lot of characters. However, it's kind of hard when you have the Spangler generation of kids and the mother. So you have Callie, Trevor, Phoebe, and Gary. So you have those four. You have the 3 surviving Ghostbusters, the OGs. Well, technically 4, because you count Janine. So Janine, Peter, Ray, and Winston. So you have those 4. So we have 8 characters right there. Then we have Patton Oswalt. Then we have, I'm messing up his name, but he plays the guy that sells the cursed object to Ray. And then we have the engineer. Those are 3 more. Okay? Those are 11 potential characters right there that we have to spread the story across. Not even mentioning, Peck. Because Peck doesn't just show up once. He shows up throughout the entire movie. Okay? So, count that. That's at least 12 recurring... No, we have 14 recurring characters throughout the entire movie that you have to spread story across. And it's rough. It's rough. Some movies struggle when you have 4 or 5 characters to give each of them screen time. So that's a complaint a lot of people have, that it wasn't enough story. Or, you could have... these characters you could have spread more time over. You could introduce some of the characters into a new movie. But I get what Gil and Jason are trying to do. Okay, they're bridging the gap, because Afterlife was kind of the spark, right? Afterlife was the spark as, hey, Egon's grandkids can be the next generation of Ghostbusters, and they are. But Phoebe is a teenager. She's still trying to find balance and trying to find her place in the world. Trevor, he's just, going along for the ride. He wants to drive the Ecto in the streets of New York. But hell, driving, even if you're, 30-year-old driving in the streets of New York is kind of crazy. So, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on here. There's a big bad that is involved that kind of has almost, I don't want to say conspiracy, but has been working in the background for a long time. We get a glimpse at the distant past featuring the firehouse, and we get a glimpse of the importance of the firehouse. That kind of gives you a little bit insight as to, okay, maybe there was a reason why the Ghostbusters wound up at the firehouse in 84, and why they stayed at the firehouse after the cross rip of 1984, why they wanted to keep the firehouse and keep an eye on the firehouse, so to speak. So you get insight into that, but there's so much story that it's kind of hard to do justice to each and every one of those characters. That's the rub. That's the issue a lot of people have. I know there are some people who want more of the OGs. You got to realize the original Ghostbusters, all the actors themselves, they're in their, at best, their late 60s to early 70s. Okay? Respectfully, they're no spring chickens, so they can't exactly run around, and let alone run around with proton packs on their back, whether they are full prop ones or if they're foam ones. Okay? You can't realistically expect that. Otherwise, Dan Aykroyd's going to have a heart attack running upstairs. Right? Winston could sprain his ankle and it could turn into you could have Ernie Hudson, break his leg, have an infection or something. Same thing with Annie Potts. Same thing with Bill Murray. It's great that they're not just a 5-minute presence, that they have strong presence throughout the film. Okay? It's great that we're getting that, but it's kind of dividing a lot of fans out there. A lot of, I don't want to say a lot, but from what I'm seeing on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, a lot of people feel divided. But the thing is, whenever you have change, you're going to have division. Okay? When they did the prequel or the sequel series, sequel trilogy to Star Wars, a lot of fans did not like it. Personally, I did not like the way they went. The very first movie had potential. It had potential but then you had 3 or 4 different storytellers trying to tell a story without having communication to one another, and the whole thing just seemed like one big bad train wreck. And I think that's what some people are thinking here. They're like, "Hey, we want the Ghostbusters for as much as we possibly can." But you got to realize, Ray and the others, they are a potential wealth of support and resource for research and for guidance. That I think is going to be their best, their best roles moving forward. You know, I mean, yeah, Bill Murray, his Venkman has always been kind of the fast talker, the schmoozer, the guy with the smart ass remarks. Okay, well, guess what? Paul Rudd is the one with the smart remarks now. Even Phoebe had a few smart ass remarks. I love it. But you can't have Bill running around with a proton pack all the time. Yes, we do see them suit up in the trailer, and yes, they do suit up in the movie. However, you can't expect to see that all throughout the entire movie. You can't. Okay? Yes, they'll suit up when things get really, really, really bad. Okay? But the original movie, Ghostbusters 1 and 2, you had 4 Ghostbusters. Okay? You had Janine keeping down the fort at the office. You had Ray, Peter, Egon, and Winston. Okay? They didn't have, million or billionaire resources. They didn't. It was just them doing their research, fumbling, and trying to keep things afloat while, not getting into too much trouble with the mayor. That was Ghostbusters 1 and 2. Now, you got, we don't know. Winston could be a billionaire for all we know. We know he's got a massive resource and he's a big philanthropist. I can't say the word. Philanthropist, basically a person who has money that can donate to charities, okay? I have speech issues sometimes, guys, so I apologize. Ray's running Ray's Occults, and, he's got help from podcast. He's doing like his own YouTube channel about possessed objects. And of course, Peter is, last we knew in Afterlife, he was, professor enjoying life in academia, but we actually see him pop up to help with analyzing someone who might have some special power that could help or could be a linchpin in the whole situation that the Ghostbusters now face. It's just, to me, I enjoyed the movie tremendously. Okay, it had a lot of real Ghostbuster vibes to it. We saw a lot of differences. Now, I know there are people who are nitpicking about the firehouse, because we see a scene that takes place, I think, in 1906. Okay, and there's some bitching and moaning about, oh, the firehouse doesn't look accurate, because technically, if you go historical, the original firehouse, Hook and Ladder 8, was actually 2 garages once upon a time. We don't see that in the movie, but that's, you guys got to realize, one, there's the real world that we live in, and then there's the Ghostbuster world. Okay, maybe that firehouse wasn't a 2 garage firehouse at one point in time. Okay, you kind of have to suspend belief. You can't nitpick every small little microscopic detail. Otherwise, you're going to be arguing with your best friends, your family members, and you're just going to be a bitter person on life. There's a lot of differences. We see the Ecto-1. We see it has a drone trap, as well as they're still rocking the remote control trap, so that's very cool. There are some tech upgrades, but then we get some major tech upgrades towards the end of the movie. You guys are just going to have to stay tuned for that. If you've been watching my channel, you might have noticed a few upgrades I've been doing to my proton pack. Yes, I got the yellow bumper. I got the thong on there. I've been making a lot of changes to it. There's going to be a lot more changes coming through the pipeline. But, this is a Ghostbusters movie for the 2020s. Okay? This is not 1984 or 1989 anymore. Okay? This is not 2000. This is 2024, guys. You have to make allowances for changes. Okay? And honestly, if you ask any Ghostbusters fan, would you rather not see a movie at all, or would you rather see this? Personally, I'm going to think that they're going to say, hey, I'll take any Ghostbuster content I can. I know I would. But me, I enjoyed the movie. It just, I will admit, speaking with some of my friends, that I will admit that there were a few times where it felt like they were trying to do a little too much with the movie as far as story wise, because there's so many storylines going on that I just don't think they could spread enough attention to every character and do every character justice. You know, there's just certain things that, they could have done a little differently. And in full disclosure, guys, every trailer that you've seen out there, a majority of those scenes that you see, like you see, there's a, what is it, Empire Magazine had a picture of Paul Rudd and Bill Murray in the basement talking, right? That is not in the movie. That's just one example. There's a lot of things that you see in the trailers that do not actually appear in the movie. Now, we don't know if there's going to be a special director's cut when the digital copy comes out, or Blu-ray, Steelbook, whatever you're going to get. Are they going to have those scenes actually as extras? We don't know. One would like to presume so, but you don't know for sure. So that's something that threw a lot of people off. Like, wait a minute, I could see one or two things being kind of a fake done for the trailer, right? But now there's stuff that was in published content, like actual published magazines, stuff that you hear in the trailers that you don't actually see word for word or scene for scene appear in the movie. And it throws a lot of damn people off. It is a bit puzzling, but hey, there might have been creative decisions. I mean, hell, there was a writer's strike, and there might have been some editing done during that time without the use of a writer, because if you're not rewriting script, you're just editing it. You don't need writers. So, there might, Gil and Jason might have done some editing during the writer's strike, because originally this movie was supposed to come out a few months back, but they pushed it off until after the writer's strike, and then they set the date for March 22nd. So who knows? Could there be another version that's going to come out? We don't know. It could happen, could not happen. We don't know. Logistically, would those extra scenes and extra footage that obviously were left out, could that alter the story a little differently? It might. We don't know. We can't say for sure, because we don't know what those full context of those extra scenes could add. You see a few seconds of a scene in the trailer, but that scene might actually be 3 or 4 minutes, or even 5 or 8 minutes. Who knows? It can make a world of difference. We know during Ghostbusters Afterlife, because of the delays with everything going on in the world, aka the pandemic, we know Jason Reitman went back and edited the movie a couple times. And it wound up being a finished product, and that finished product was amazing. This movie is not going to have the same emotional impact that Afterlife did as far as the story. It does lead the Ghostbusters into the future. Okay. It establishes the Ghostbusters as heroes of New York City again. It does take us on a wild ride. It does give us, especially us nerds from the 80s, it gives us a lot of nods to the real Ghostbusters. Obviously, you see Slimer in the trailer. You see Slimer pop up a couple times, which is kind of cool. You get to see a lot of gadgets that we haven't seen maybe since the real Ghostbusters cartoon. So there's a lot of things in it. I enjoyed the movie, but again, I'm probably biased because I'm a fan of Ghostbusters. I mean, I have my Spirit or my HasLab right there. I'm actually charging another proton pack on the side here. I'm all about Ghostbusters. I'm about everything else. You guys know I love DC, I love Marvel, I love Power Rangers, G.I. Joe. Ghostbusters is something that's always near and dear to my heart. I enjoyed the movie. Again, the movie was not 100% perfect. There's a few things that I think could have been a little bit better. But again, you're trying to divide story across, at least 11 or 12 different characters. It's kind of hard to do justice. A lot of people are asking questions like, hey, couldn't we get a mention of Lewis? Could we get a mention of Dana? Could we get a mention of A, B, C, and D all the way through Z? And those things didn't happen. But you know what? Those things wouldn't have contributed to the story, would they? As a writer, I'm sure Gil had one of the hardest things. Since he was director this time, him and Jason co-wrote this script. But I'm sure as fans, after the amazing success of Afterlife, there was obviously they're trying to include as much as they possibly could in this movie. And you can't fault them for that. They're fans just like we are. I mean, Jason was a kid, but he was on the set of Ghostbusters 1, watching his father make this fantastic movie that became a life all onto itself. He even had a small bit cameo in the beginning of Ghostbusters 2. I mean, it's in his blood. And I'm sure as a fan, he watched the cartoons, he had all the toys, and I'm sure he wants to throw in as much as he possibly can for as long as he can, Um, I think that it's a great movie. I think families will gravitate to the movies. I think we're going to get a lot of new fans because of Afterlife and because of Frozen Empire. Um, I will say that the battle towards the end could have been a little bit longer and a little bit more involved. It does. I heard a lot of people say that they felt like it kind of went very quickly. The battle was over pretty quick, and I can see that point of view. You know, um, and there's a lot of things, especially because with Phoebe is kind of the focal point for the story for the most part. Phoebe and a friend that she makes is a focal point, but Phoebe's 15. She doesn't know any better, and her mother said go out there and make mistakes. She did maybe make a couple of mistakes. Maybe she was a little too trusting and too cavalier and too reckless when it comes to technology. But I think it's a learning lesson. All of us when we were teenagers, I'm sure we had that one mistake, that one incident that kind of like made you take a step back, made you realize, well, I really messed up. And Phoebe gets that moment. So I mean, that's very genuine. And obviously, I think that personally that was Jason's influence right there. Jason's influence when it comes to writing, because again, he co-wrote this with Gil. Um, Personally, with the end of the movie, and there is a mid-credit scene, guys, so stay for it. It's hilarious. It's freaking hilarious. And honestly, me and my wife walked out of the movie smiling. We enjoyed ourselves. We had an awesome time. It was a fun movie. It did some scenes. I think a shift in editing or a different version of editing of this movie might balance things out a little bit better, because obviously you can tell that there are things that are, I don't know, the editing again, it felt like obviously things were left out. Could those things maybe created more of a balance to the story? We won't know unless there's a new version or an alternate version that's released on DVD or Blu-ray. We'll have to keep an eye out for that, guys. We'll just have to keep an eye out. That's how we're going to get those questions answered. But we'll see what happens. Obviously the movie just came out. I'm sure Gil and Jason will be talking about it for weeks or even months to come. Also, speaking of which, don't forget this June 8th, 2024 is the 40th anniversary of Ghostbusters, and also the annual Ghostbusters fan date down at the Firehouse Hook and Ladder 8 down on Vork Street. Every year, the Buffalo Ghostbusters organize a fan fest, a fan day to just come down to the Firehouse, hang out, meet other Ghostbuster franchises and friends from all over the world. The past couple of years, we've had a few guests from the movies. Last year we had actually the Alessi brothers. They were one of the music artists from the very first film. Joe Cirillo, who's appeared in the very first Ghostbusters movie, has made several appearances there. It's just a great time. And of course, the Firehouse Hook and Ladder 8 is a functional firehouse, and they do sell their own merch to help go back and fund the firehouse itself, to help keep up the firehouse and to keep the firehouse running as smooth as possible. The men and women of the FDNY put so much hard work and dedication into the firehouse and into helping everyone, whether it's a cat in a tree, a car accident, someone's not responding medically. Those men and women of the FDNY, they put their hearts and souls into saving our lives every single day. So every nickel, every dime for this event goes back into the firehouse and helps keep things running and keep them going and keep them out there on the streets saving our lives every single day. So please consider, if you do come down there, please consider purchasing merchandise. They do, it's all cash there, but that's their own merchandise, hook and ladder rate. They're an amazing group of guys, and they embrace the fandom as well, as much as they possibly can. Past couple years, we've had the Ecto 1, and also the Answer the Call Ecto was there last year. We have some pretty awesome surprises coming this year. So if you want more details, you can go to the BuffaloGhostbusters.com. That's BuffaloGhostbusters.com. Or you can go to our Instagram, which is Buffalo G Busters. Or you can go to our Twitter at Buffalo G Busters for more information. But our best site is going to be BuffaloGhostbusters.com for all your details. All the details we'll be releasing about the event. Please go there and check it out. But honestly, my final word on Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, it's a fun time. Don't try not to go into the movie expecting A, B, and C to happen. Just go there, get some drinks, some popcorn, bring your friends, your family. Just go expecting a fun, great movie, and you're going to have a great time. That's my personal opinion. And hey, guys, if you disagree with me, or maybe you have a favorite scene from the movie, please drop it in the comment section below. If you like this video, give me that thumbs up, ring that bell for notifications, hit that red button to follow us. But honestly, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, it felt like a very involved live action episode of the real Ghostbusters, and I loved it. And with the way, the direction they're moving it in, I can't wait to see the next movie. Yes, there will be a next movie. There's also talk about an animated Netflix series. So the future is bright for Ghostbusters, guys. It was a great movie. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Now, I know some people have been rating it 3 or 3.5 stars out of 5. I give it a solid 4 out of 5. But see, it's bridging that gap between the spark, which was Afterlife, and the potential future that we're facing. Okay? If you want to look at it, I guess you could look at Afterlife as being the beginning of a new series of movies, and this is the second one. I mean, effectively, this is our fourth movie in this timeline, because you had Ghostbusters 1, 84, Ghostbusters 2, 1989. Answer the Call was a different timeline, so we're not counting that in the succession of sequels. Afterlife was the third movie, the second sequel, if you will. And now Frozen Empire is our fourth movie in this timeline, in this profile, if you will. Excuse me. But to me, it's fun. It's got its ups and downs, its twists and turns. Some things you might see coming, others you won't. There's still so much I mean, honestly, I watched it a second time and I picked up on things I didn't pick up on the first time around. But guys, go enjoy it. Don't think too much about it. Just have a good time. Just go and enjoy yourselves, guys. That's all I can say, and that's all I can suggest. But guys, if you want a more deep dive analyzing from front to back all the way through A to Z of Frozen Empire, let me know in the comment section below, or even message me on Dave's underscore dimension on Instagram. And guys, also, you know me, I also do the Ride for Roswell, which is an annual fundraising bike ride for Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Institute. We're going to be doing our Stream for the Cure later this year. If you want details, just go into the video description below and check out all the details, including a donation link for the Ride for Roswell, which benefits cancer research and development of new cancer treatments. So please consider taking a look at that. And guys, as always, you know what I'm going to say every single time. Keep on busting, and I'm always going to catch you on the flip side. Take care, guys.